But here is the consequences of being, stiff-necked and of not listening to the voice of one another. This is a parable of small talk. One day, there was a king. There was a king, and this king, he had his kingdom. His kingdom. His kingdom was like a yard, a very closed yard. Mamatzola, can you please just stop sharing, please? This king, he had a kingdom. This king was like a yard. This king had a dog, whom he loved that dog so much. The dog was inside the yard. The yard was closed. Kingdom is closed, tall walls and stuff. But the problem was that outside the yard, there was a lion. This lion was always busy patrolling the kingdom or the yard, always moving around and around and around and around, always. And the king, the lion, one day sent a letter to the king and say, "Oh, king, I heard that you had a dog inside your yard. But I want to let you know that, I've been patrolling your kingdom, your yard, because I know that you have a dog inside your yard. Me as a lion, I have already devoured all the animals around your yard. So I have already tested all those meat, and I am tired of that. Now I want to test a very tasteful, a very nice meat, which is a meat dog or dog meat. And I know that you have a dog, king. So you better know that I'm coming behind you." The king read the letter, was like, "Oh." And because the king loved so much his dog, he called the dog, Waza, come. And he said to his dog, "Look, the lion, he sent a letter. He has been patrolling the yard because he has already eaten all the type of the meat that is found out there. And the only one, meat left that he has never tested is dog meat. And didn't know that inside we have you and your dog." And the dog said, "Please, do not go outside. Don't go outside." And the dog was like, "Oh, yes, yes, yes. Thank you, my owner. Thank you very much." King said, "Okay, that's good." Okay, and the king was treating the dog very nice, serving, the best meal for the dog. Always, he was giving the best meal for the dog to prevent the dog from going outside. And one day, after, they eat this very good meal, very tasteful meal, the dog also ate a very nice meal. And the servants of the king, after everybody ate, they were, removing the dishes from the table, right? And they were putting together all the bones. That is where the problem started. While they were, removing the plates from the table, all the bones, they put together all the bones, on one place. And the dog was just there, looking into the bones. And the eyes, his eyes was like bones. And the dog was watching carefully what the servant will do with the bones. So the dog, was watching them from far. And the servant, they were busy, organizing the table, removing every, dishes that were already used. And one of the servants went outside and opened the gate of the kingdom and threw the bones in the trash can outside the yard. The first time he threw, the dog saw that. It was like, oh goodness, I love bones, you know, and it was calm. So when the second servant came outside also, the first one went outside, threw the bone, and came back. And the second servant also went outside and threw the bone. But while the second servant was throwing the bone in the trash can, the doggy couldn't resist that. Even though the dog was fed with the best meal by the king, because the king loves him so much, and he didn't want him to go outside. The dog didn't resist that temptation. The moment the second servant goes outside with the bones, the dog also ran outside and he hid himself. The servant threw the bone in the trash can and entered inside the yard, locked the gate, and the dog went all the way to the trash can, eating the bones. You know, dogs like the bones, right? He goes to the trash can, just enjoying his bone. He was enjoying all bones, they do. That's how they do it, He was biting the bones. He was biting the bones. While he was enjoying the bones, somebody showed up. Guess who was that, family? Guess who was that? The lion showed up. The lion showed up. And it was like, I got you. I got you now. You are the best meal I was expecting to test. Now I have you. And it was the dog. When the dog looked outside, he was alone by himself. The yard was locked. And the lion attacked the dog. Inside, the king was only listening from the noise. The dog was screaming, oh, help, 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 help. But the king could do nothing because the king read the letter and warned the dog, be careful. The dog was screaming, but the king said, well, I can't do anything. I warn you. That's your fault. So you look for problem, you must deal with the consequences. And the dog was ate by the lion. What does Peter say again? Discipline yourself. Keep alert. Like a roaring lion, your adversary, the devil, prowls around looking for someone to devour. Therefore, resist him, steadfast in your faith. For you know that your brothers and sisters, that part, we don't. This is the message from Zam. So, a bunch of people is full of wisdom. I think you understood the parable from talk. So I will thank you very much, dear family, for your attention. And meantime, I bless his word. Please be on alert. We don't think that everybody's faith false prophet. No, we don't think that. Zambia has been a prophet. Everywhere, Zambia is a prophet around the world. Doesn't matter where he is. But Kajapemba also sent his agent. And the problem is that the agent of Kajapemba, they like to show off. People to feel the power. But the Mwanda doesn't show off. Mwanda doesn't show off. So meantime, I bless his word. May you make a room within our heart that we may learn at least something from this message. So I pray in Zambia And if you know anybody whom you know that needs a little bit of advice, don't hesitate, family, say it. With wisdom, humility, say it so that you may save. Because Krempemba is letting many people astray. Many people. And Tatanzam is not glad with that. Mamatola, Matola Massacre, and that will be handing over the time to Ingeta.
Ingeta, Mutanda Masaka, Pangibanika for this teaching. Now, family, I pray that this message has enriched you, and I pray that we will all be hearers of the word and doers of the word and not just hearers only. And now we're going to move on to the next portion of our Zoom, whereby we have questions and answers. So if you have questions or comments you want to make, you'll be able to do so at this time. Just raise your hand and time will be given. Bonica, I just want to say, I remember when I first came into this awakening, and as you spoke, there is a lot of things that was being said. There's a lot of things that's still being said that cause a lot of confusion for a lot of people. And, even so many things, sometimes I know people that wanted to go to church, but they was afraid to go to church. But at the same time, some of those people were not mature enough to stand by themselves and keep walking and keep going. They needed support. They needed help. And because of some of the teachings that was out there, because of, a lot of things that were being said, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know if to go to church. They felt if they went to church, they felt like they were being condemned for going to church. They felt like they was going to go to hell because people were saying, they were quoting that scripture, "Come out of her, my people, lest you be partaker in her plagues." And so they were afraid to go to church. And then you had people, they just didn't know what to do, but they was not mature enough to be standing on their own. They didn't have enough, that's the only way I know how to describe it. They couldn't stand on their own. They needed help. They needed support. They needed teaching. And they didn't know what to do, and they didn't know which way to go. And so they just got confused. Some of them I know just gave up and just decided not to do anything because of some of the teaching that has been out here. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for that. Mathonda Masaka. Elder Kennedy, time is given.
Yeah, thank you for this great presentation. You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Ingeta, we can hear you.
Ingeta.
Good. So I was saying this is a great presentation, and I like the wisdom of our brother Benica, of the bones and the nice meal that was prepared by the owner. And most of us, when we focus away from what God has given us, that's where our failure comes. I was just thinking recently, how on earth did our leaders love the dollar and give out the gold just like that? The gold and the paper money that the nation can print, even a whole town can have the money, is much better than the money. Sometimes as we focus on things that downgrade us, the story of the dog is a story of self-interest. that turns us into a slavery, into slave. The master has given you food, nice food. Even after eating that nice food, you are still focusing on the bones. Even when they are being thrown, you are still focusing on them. Yeah? When you follow your self-interest, your imagination will always betray you. And you will be enslaved by Kadian Pemba. The best way to be free is to focus on the master and the master's food. And that's why we are here. There are so many religions out there. They have the bones. If you focus on the bones, you'll be lost. You need to focus on the master and his meal so that you can never be lost. I like that particular analogy of the dog and the bones. The Bantu should focus on the meal, not on the bones. The meal that was prepared for you. Eh? Yes, that's what I wanted to say. The meal and not the bones. Thank you.
Wow, Madonna Masaka, Elder Kennedy, that was sound wisdom. Madonna Masaka for that. That really spoke to me.
Please, we'll share the notes, read it clearly. We'll post the video, watch it clearly so that we may understand it clearly. The worst danger things is to teach error. You know the scripture, right? It's Corinthians. If you teach the good stuff, the laws on how people, if you teach people on how to observe the laws of Nzambi, this and that, everything that is good, Nzambi will be very happy. But woe to he who teach error or something that is not in line. That's a big trouble. That's a big trouble. You know, one thing is to act as Paul says, to act wise, to not judge anybody, to not judge a different opinion, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But later on, they want to come and say, but test everything you see, everything you listen. You know, so Elder Patrick say, test this information, even test it, you know, review it, study it. If it is good for you, praise Nzambi. If it's not, well, you know, may his will be done. But one thing is, you know, I like how Elder Kennedy elaborated, you know, don't focus on the bones. Don't focus on the bones. The meat is just there. It's very near to us. Bones are useless. Nothing to do with us. Bone is bone. The meat is very close to us. So, Don Masaka family, and we thank you all very much for your presence.
Masajulu mwazela pange kota tudisole tuzelese omishima pange tuzelese omishima pange tuzelese omishima alajano wayo lungu ya Jesu ya nzumbi mundu kitena kuimona mundu kitena kuimona mundu kitena kuimona pange ngongo ya tema tusoma baba nzumbi kulengele mu matuta pange kulengele mu matuta